Welcome to the Lifestream Lounge. I'm Chip Noir. Here, I'll be interviewing the creator of Final Fantasy VII New Threat mod, Sega Chief. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me.
So, Sega, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the meat of things.
I'm from Scotland, Glasgow. You can't tell with the accent. Started working on the mod about 5 or 6 years ago, I think it was. Basically stumbled on the PC version of the game, and Gajorov had a mod out, the hardcore mod. So I was playing that, and I thought, this is pretty good, this. But I asked him if he could make some changes to it, and he was like, no, it'd be better if I show you the tools to do it, and you can make the changes yourself. And it kind of snowballed, and I thought, maybe I'll make my own mod out of that, and kind of just took off from there.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's an old game. Sometimes it's better to try to get it to change a little bit. But on that note, what is New Threat for those of us that don't know?
New Threat's a gameplay overhaul mod. The idea was to not just do like a kind of difficulty or rebalancing. It was to try and add a bit extra into it, like maybe adds a few extra scenes into it, a few quality of life additions, like you can cut some of the length of your flashback scenes, things like that. The scope of it's crept out a bit, so I've ended up doing things like a text overhaul, dialogue overhaul, things like that. Some minor graphical changes, some script and bug fixes for the audio, because the PC version has a few problems with it. Like the audio channels are all messed up, so if you're playing that and you've just come from the PlayStation version, you'll notice certain scenes don't sound quite right, or they don't play out the way they should be, things like that. So that's basically what the goal of the mod was. It's just to kind of like try to take the game that you remember but make it feel better, if you know what I mean.
It's a massive project. How long have you been working on this again?
The original build took about a year to put together. Then I had to scrap that because it was terrible. It took about a couple extra months to get it back into working order, and then since then it's just been like adding on to it, maintenance, feature requests, things like that, and that's been going on for about 5 years now.
That is a lot of work, a lot of dedication. Is this a hobby that's kind of spread out to other games? How'd you get into all this?
Basically, it's just trying out a different mod that someone made, the hardcore mod, which was really well put together because it had a lot of AI changes, so it wasn't just like a stat hack. It had a lot of good... it does seem a bit overwhelming difficulty-wise at first, but it's actually really well balanced and it encourages you to get to know all the mechanics. So I was kind of... Once I got into the tools and started seeing what was possible, because this game has one of the best support for tools that there is. Some of the tools are a bit old, but they're really good tools, like very comprehensive. So you can just kind of like make whatever you want out of the game, which I thought was quite cool. Because I always remember when I was playing the game, I was young, I thought it'd be amazing if you'd be able to like edit the game, because there were other games at the time like Tenchu 2, some others where you could edit maps and things like that. So it's like, it would be great if you could have that feature, like in F7 you could change things to make it like different. So it's like a dream come true, really. You know what I mean? I always wanted to work in the game, really.
So you don't actually work in the gaming field. This is all in your own time, right?
Oh yeah. I was at university at the time. I was doing a PhD, and I picked up as a kind of hobby. Then I left, and I just kind of like, I was between jobs, so I just threw myself at it, and then put that out, and then found work, and not being able to put as much time into it recently because I've got I went back to college to do a software development course, try and get out because I was in English before and there's not really a lot of opportunities for that. So I wanted to go into computing instead. So I've got my job, and then I've got college, and then I've got to go to university in September again. So I've not had as much time to work on it recently, but I usually just try and work on it whenever I can now.
Have you ever considered bringing in partnerships or making a team to get more stuff done?
Kind of. The problem is, it's because the tools are being what they are, you need people who are able to, like the AI editing, for instance, there's not many people who can do it quite very well because it's all in hex, so it's not like a higher level language. You need to learn all the opcodes and how that's put together. And I was trying to teach a few people how to do it, but it takes time. It took me a good 6 months or something to try and to get grips with it, and I'm still not perfect at it, if you know what I mean. And that's just one side of it. There's other stuff as well. You've got like your models, and you've got your deal scripting, because the game's files aren't, it's because if you have it spread out in different people, then you can end up having like you're waiting on people for deadlines. Like Sunamods has that problem with voice actors. He's waiting on people delivering their lines, and it kind of holds things up a wee bit. And it's just, I think it would be a bit of a hassle if I brought in people at this point, because the scripts being what they are, it's all a bit all over the place. There's also, it's a bit disorganised. So bringing somebody in, I'd have to try and get them up to speed and where everything is and whatnot.
I mean, I can't even imagine how complicated it has to be. I remember the first time I tried your mod out, I got to the Scorpion Guard fight, and I was escaping that, and I think I might have somehow installed it wrong because Biggs was missing and knocked out in the corner, and I got sucked into an unwinnable boss fight, and I had to restart the game for that.
I think you might have combined the mod with another mod, maybe, if Biggs was there. Was he on the ground floor?
Yeah.
The reactor? Yeah, so I think in the original builds of the game, the demo, you used to be able to pick up Biggs, like Jessie, when Jessie, you talk to him and she comes with you. It used to be a wee thing where you had to do that with Biggs, like you'd been ambushed by some soldiers and you talk to him and he gets up. But they took that out of the game, but some modders have brought it back in. So when you combine mods, you get scripts and that sort of thing. But because I've changed the encounter rates on those field screens, see if you combine the mods, you start getting wrong encounters loading and it just becomes a bit of a mess.
I see, so word out to there for people trying this out, don't mix your mods. Be safe. So, there is just so much to go over here when it comes to changes to the gameplay. Honestly, it almost feels like a new game in and of itself.
The thing is, I forget myself what's in there. Like, there's someone that told me about a feature. It's like the gold ticket and the gold saucer. And if you talk to the guy at the roadway station, he can teleport you to different sections. And it kind of blew my mind because I'd forgotten to put that in there. So it's a bit weird. That much in there, I'm starting to forget what I've put in.
Oh boy, so you don't have like a master Bible on all the changes.
No, this is the thing, I'm terrible for that. See, I didn't keep a changelog at the start, and it kind of got to the point where it's like, well, I can't really keep a changelog now, I'm too far along, but I kind of regret that now because I haven't been able to keep track of it. So when people ask me what exactly is different in it, I can only give them kind of generalised kind of answers about it. I change things that often as well, so...
So let's get into the meat of things here, because there are a few elements here that I just adore, and I want to play the whole thing over again and again, just because I feel like there's so much stuff here. But let's start with materia and armor system, because that feels like the biggest change.
Yeah, I think if you're making a mod, the best place to start is with your kind of like your starting stuff, like what the player's going to be using, your characters, your equipment, your items and things like that, and then you build everything else around that. I think, have you ever played FF6 B&W, Brave New World?
No, I haven't. I've just gotten into the modding scene.
Well, the modder for that is a guy called BTB, and him and some of the other guys, they write like theories about how you should design a mod, and that was one of the big ones. You always start with your kind of like your what the player's got access to and what tools they're going to be using to beat your enemies, rather than doing it the other way around. Some people start with the enemies and then do the rest later. You know what I mean? But material and the items and equipment is the most important thing, I think.
I see. So, what was your process for deciding the changes here? For the people at home that haven't played this, what's going on is that you have armor stats that have been changed dramatically. Yeah. And materia also changes stats, if I recall correctly. Can you give us some examples there?
So the idea is, the default game, your armor and that usually only just change your defense and magic defense. You'd sometimes get some stat gains on them, but not a lot. But the idea was if all the armor has like good, unique kind of like stat gains on it, then that can help you vary up your builds a bit. So if you wanted to make your party a bit faster, if you wanted to go for kind of an all magic kind of thing, then you'd be able to mix and match your equipment to try and augment your character stats and get a bit more variety in it, make it a bit more like an RPG. Because I think the original game you just slapped on whatever had the highest defense or the highest materia slots, and that was you.
Oh, literally. I'm still using a freaking iron bangle from time to time late in the game. I never thought I'd see that.
I think that has like 44 defense or something. It's like one of the highest ones. So I think it caps at 50 in NT. Because I doubled the defense value, so it's like 100. The other thing is, see when I'm trying to design things, I try to keep it close to the default game so it's still familiar, because there were some mods that came out where everything was radically changed, renamed, completely different effects, and I always found that a bit, I don't know, overwhelming sometimes, like information overload, so I try to keep everything sort of like default, but just adding on a little extra, so it's still familiar, but it's got a few new effects on it.
I'm not gonna lie, the first time I played this, I got my butt kicked because I did not know what to expect from this. So, for people just starting out, what's your advice for handling the changes? What should they go in knowing about this?
First thing I think is just making use of this, because you're getting a lot of new equipment, you're getting a barrier like in Midgar rather than right at the end at Rocket Town. So you're getting all this stuff earlier, so you should be looking to make use of it, like a lot more like your barriers, just for reducing incoming damage, and just trying to take using elemental material just on your physical attacks just to get your extra damage out. Just trying to make use of the tools as they come out rather than putting them to one side and trying to ignore them, because I see some players, like they'll get the barrier, you know, for taking off the enemy's protection, and they just kind of shelve it because in the original game they didn't really need it, so they kind of just out of habit they put it to one side and don't use it, and some of the fights get a lot more difficult for them because of that.
A lot more difficult. I don't think I've had more. I'm not the kind of person who usually gets game overs in Final Fantasy VII, so seeing that kind of hurt my heart a little bit. Moving on to the other biggest changes, you have dramatically overhauled the character balances.
Yeah. I think the problem in the original game was is that stats were a bit all over the place. Like some characters were just objectively better in every way than some of the other ones. I think there was a few lost opportunities there because you could have like the luck stats quite interesting the way that works because it helps you land critical hits but also helps you dodge attacks, so you can build a character around that. So kind of gave Kate Sif, a character that's quite unpopular, gave him a massive amount of it so you could toy around with that. Other characters tried to get them factored up a bit, like I think Tia's got more strength and dexterity, so it's like a fast physical hitter but not a lot of vitality. Barrett's just kind of the same, but high strength, high vitality, but very slow. You just have a kind of distinctive characteristics in each character. Because one thing I liked about the hardcore mod by Gajoro is that he restarted all the characters to make them more unique, and you could build around that.
Yeah, the thing that stuck out to me the most was Tifa. She is by far the biggest change. You have turned her into a one-woman army.
Well, yeah. It's because of the physical damage and it's a high speed, so you're getting more turns out of it, and the limit breaks work quite well with that because it's like multi-hits quite early, so you can have like 2 hits, and then when level 2 comes out 3 and 4.
She never leaves my party ever. I love her to death now, and I didn't like her before. I kept her out.
Well, in the base game, I think she has the worst overall stats. She's got like some of the lowest strength, and just everything's kind of like average, middling, or below average kind of stat-wise. So usually she wasn't really too overwhelming, but I wanted each character to feel useful, so I buffed them a bit.
She is still fragile, but that brings us to another element, that she has that special ability Second Wind, or...
Oh, is it Grip? The one at 1 HP?
Yep.
When they get KO'd, aye. A lot of people said that ability was underwhelming a wee bit, but I think it's really useful, because even you're in a fight and you're expecting a KO and it doesn't happen and your command goes through, it can help you.
Oh, it's saved my butt a lot. So to explain to our audiences here, every character now has a unique ability that's sort of kind of like the passive abilities in Final Fantasy V. They activate on their own. Can you go into more about those and how you've programmed that in?
Each character has their own AI pool, which was originally used for the date scene. See in battle, see if a character was KO'd, then the rating would go down, or if Cloud revives somebody, then the rating would go up. But the development team, for whatever reason, when the date scene comes around, they didn't take any of these variables and add them on, so they all just get wasted. So you basically have all these fully functioning character AI slots that you can just use for whatever. So I cleared it out and started programming in things like Red 13's kind of like his attack stats build up over time, but it has those kind of defense stacks or attack stacks if he's in the front row, just to make it so each character felt a bit more unique beyond their stats and their weapons. You know what I mean? Just try and get a bit more uniqueness to them.
That's pretty cool. I love that. And also, you've given Aerith not just the passive buff, but you've also given her the ability to use her staffs to heal, which is a nice callback to older Final Fantasies. And I love that because everybody wants to build Aerith as a white mage, but she's a magic tank. And so doing that, you get a chance to heal without giving up materia slots that are better spent on offensive spells.
I'm kind of still hoping somebody tries to build as a physical attacker because I left that option in there. I think it'll work, but I've never actually tested it. But we'll see. Because I think that umbrella weapon should hit pretty hard if she's built with strength.
Next is stat bonuses, and this blew my freaking mind. Like an RPG where you don't level up. What is this? Well, what were you thinking?
Yeah, the original builds at 1.3 used to be you were able to, you just leveled up and your character stats would increase along with it. But when I played B&W, that FF6 mod, they had a system where you equipped the Espers on and you had a limited amount of Esper level ups for your stats. So you'd build your characters that way. You'd decide what stats to increase. And I thought that'd be quite handy in FF7. So I drew up this kind of system. And the entire system revolves around trying to get sources used on specific characters rather than just used on anybody and stop the player from taking the sources out and duplicating them. So basically what you can do, what you do in FF7 NT is you decide which stats to build in your character, so you can make them into physical hitters, you can make them into tanks, so you can make them into whatever, well, the idea is to make them into whatever you want really and augment that with your equipment.
Well, you get them in packages, so you still have to be kind of thoughtful about that, because something might look appealing, but you also might neglect another stat, so that's something I had to learn to deal with.
I tried to fix that by adding a kind of base growth of 5 to every stat, because before it was just the stats you picked, but that caused a problem where some characters were sitting with 8 dexterity to level 99, so they were just not able to keep up, or they didn't have any offense, so they were kind of useless in battle and things like that.
Speaking of battles, one of the other highlights that almost made me quit just because, oh my god, are you secretly a sadist? I think you're secretly a sadist. Some of these bosses are hard.
Well, I used to do a lot of challenge runs to the game and kind of like to see people suffer when they're playing it, like maybe put a few things in there that I know are going to kind of bamboozle a few folk, but yeah. I try not to do that, but I do have a bit of a mean streak sometimes. Depends on mood I'm in.
We're not kidding. You're going to have some game overs when you play with people. Just bring some tissues. But I love some of the hidden surprises, which we won't talk about, but just keep an eye out for it, people. You've gone above and beyond if the boss is here. Do you have any advice for just generally what to prepare for in terms of dealing with bosses so people don't,
I think the best thing to do is always try and go in with a kind of a good generalised kind of setup. So have all your support material on, your barrier all, your restore, your dispel. Try and use some of your prior knowledge. If you know what boss is coming up, say Apps is coming up, you know he's in the sewer, so you can assume that he's going to be using water attacks on you, so you could maybe go in with Bolt Elemental to get some extra physical attack damage. But sometimes the fight might not go your way if on the first run, so you can treat it as like a scouting run and then just check what he's got, what he's doing, what his attacks are, his weaknesses, and then if it doesn't go well, then you can come back in better prepared and curb stomp it. That was the idea is that the better prepared you are, the more able you are to beat the enemies in it. So I didn't want it to be unfair, if you know what I mean, but it's kind of like this problem where you try and design an encounter to be surprising, but at the same time, if a player's going in blind, then they might not be able to get through it if you spec it so that you need to use every single weakness that it has.
Yeah, that's the thing that I noticed is that while there are some fairly high HP enemies, nothing's going down in one hit, even if you're good with your levels. It's a lot more to do with figuring out the weaknesses and getting past their AI. You've created a lot more complicated behavior patterns. I've had to switch up my materia pretty often. How difficult is this process of tweaking enemy AI?
Well, AI is it's a bit of a brick wall at first because you're basically dealing with hex codes, so it's all in opcodes, and you need to use an editor to disassemble it into something resembling a high-level language, like so you could say your if strings and whatnot. After a while, it kind of starts to make sense, but it's like for instance, an example would be you'd write in 122070, 0220A0, 8290, 6020, 61 in an attack ID, then 92, and that tells the enemy using attack. But it's all in those kind of values, so it can mess your head up a bit sometimes.
My head hurts just listening to that.
But you pick up bits of it if you write it enough times. You kind of start memorising it. It makes it easier to write it because a lot of time you'll be referring to notes so you know what you're writing. And it's just taking examples from existing enemies and then tweaking that.
So, what would you say was your favorite Final Fantasy monster in general? Just what warms your heart to see?
Well, it's got to be Guard Scorpion, doesn't it? Like,
I figured you'd say that.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but I was talking to a friend of mine or something that was about Oblivion, of all things, and we were talking about how it would be funny if there was like an Imperial Guard who just chased you through the whole game for some reason. And I was working on the mod at the time, and I don't know, would I be able to do that with FF7 somewhere? And the original idea was maybe have a Shinra soldier, but I just dropped it. And then I don't know when it happened, but it was like, what if I had that fucking Guard Scorpion do that to you? Like, just keeps popping up, like repaired and damaged to it and things like that. So
yeah, keep an eye out for that guy. I'm not saying where he's showing up, but he's interesting. So for the rest of the game, you've made tweaks not just to the battle system, but you've gone ahead and changed Siege. Like, getting Yuffie is now different.
There was a kind of a reason behind that. Somebody found when they got to the end of the game, because it forced a free party fight with Bizarro originally, like the older builds, you could end up in a situation where you didn't have enough people to make free parties if you didn't pick up Yuffie and Vincent. So I had to make one of them mandatory, I think, just to make that work. I could have just like changed it and made it like 1 party, 2 party, 3 party, but I had it in my head and I wanted to have a 3 party Bizarro fight. So I was rooting around for ideas for it, and then I saw another modder called Cloudiar's mod. It's called, I think it's called FF7 OVA. It was never released, but he put videos up of it. And he had this scene in Cam where Yuffie turns up, and I thought I'd maybe try and replicate that, if you know what I mean.
Well, it was a good choice. I loved it. It's just sort of like, you go through the Nibelheim flashbacks so often, you're like, oh god, let me just move on. And then suddenly something that different happened right after. It's really refreshing. I made a good choice there. But speaking of Calumny, it's not just Yuffie. You've got the entire party fooling around a few different towns. How'd you come up with that idea?
Oh, you know that bit in Costa del Sol when your party's kind of hanging around town, you could always talk to them?
Yeah.
I always thought that was kind of cool, so it's like, maybe I could try and get that into the other towns. I think I'd done Cam and June on, but I had other stuff to do, like bug fixing and whatnot, so I ended up keep getting distracted away from it, so I never really finished it properly, like every town. But I do want to do it, finish that off one day, and just get it rolled out to the entire game.
Do you find it difficult to come up with lines for the characters? This is something that somebody on our community was interested in.
Sometimes it's really easy, and sometimes it's impossible. Like, you need to come up with something that's in character, if you know what I mean. It needs to be... There's a lot of kind of like restrictions I try to put on it. Like, I need to try and make it so that it's... and it's nice and short. It can't be too long either. So sometimes it just comes out... It's easy enough, but other times it's just, you're just stuck for hours trying to think of something.
That's fair. Not everybody's a writer, so I like what you've done so far. I can't wait to see what comes up in other builds. And speaking of the characters, we're going to go into spoiler territory. So skip time shown on the screen if you don't want to be spoiled. How this would be a spoiler for you, I don't know, but let's be safe. Aerith, you've gone ahead and done a no-no, which I turned out to actually like.
Yeah. Right, so you remember we were talking about before of kind of like messing with people?
Mm-hmm.
Basically I was doing the first playtest of it, and I'd done the Forbidden City bit and passed the S bit. There's a sweet scene where you come out the shell in this 2, and the camera pans up and it shows you where Sephiroth went. And I thought to myself, it'd be funny if the camera panned back down and Eris was there and they just acted as if nothing had happened. So I scripted that up and put it in the build, but it happened so fast and people were skipping text that they just missed it completely. So I was like, right, I'll need to do it properly now. So I went and done like your kind of the old joke, you know what I mean? Streams, it's like, you just use a Phoenix down on her. And it's like,
And that's what you did. My jaw dropped to the floor because nobody had told me about that. Like, what's going on? What?
yeah.
She's not dead?
I just thought it'd be quite funny because a lot of speedruns people were making that joke. So it's like, it'd be funny if someone streamed the mod and then they said that and then it did happen. You know what I mean? I remember watching a stream where it happened and it was quite funny. They were making the joke and then it happened and it was like...
And yeah, it does produce some difficulties because now you've got a character that has almost nothing to do with the plot going on now.
Yeah, it did cause a lot of problems. Script-wise, it was actually not too bad because, see, going past that point, there's not a lot of scenes that cause problems with having theirs there. It's only until you reach the observatory towards the end of Disc 2 where they start to wonder what it was she was doing in Forgotten City. That's when it started to become problematic. But yeah, there was also a problem with animations, like seeing the crater. She doesn't have any animations for like the descent or what have you. The script in there is a nightmare.
Well, you managed to do it. For audiences at home, I am at the post game. I'm trying to go through your super bosses because we've decided again to be sadistic. All the materia, the final materia, is guarded by a boss each, and ouch.
Yeah. I got that from the hardcore mod because all those materia caves were guarded. So I figured I'd do a copycat on them. I don't think my bosses are as hard as his though. His are mental. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the one that I'm stuck on right now is the magic cactor in the desert.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, I think his gimmick was that when he's hit with magic, he gets a little bit bigger. But he's if you hit him with physical attacks, he's very good at dodging, so you need to use, I think certain attacks are better for it. Like, I think Quadra Magic can be really good there because it helps your magic, it only counts as one magic attack, but you're casting it 4 times. So things like that.
Unfortunately, if it gets too big, then he just instant kills you.
Yeah, it's not the best boss, but, you know, probably should change it at some point.
Maybe telegraph it somewhere, but the idea is good. Like I said earlier, you have to think through these battles. You can't just brute force your way through most encounters. Definitely none of the bosses. So respect there. So, as you said, the mod is a continual work in progress. You're taking time away from it to, live life, as we all have to, unfortunately. But do you have any future plans for the mod?
Well, I'm working on FF8 NT at the moment, but once I've done that, I want to go back to FF7 and do a rebuild, because there's a lot in the mod that I'm not happy with. There's a lot that needs to be chopped out or redone. I learned how to manipulate the assembly about a few months ago. It was fairly recently, before I made like the latest build anyway. So with that, I'd be able to change it a bit better, because some of my hacks that I've been put in there, like the way levels treated, the way defense works, it's all a wee bit sloppy, and it doesn't work too well, and it has problems. So I want to try and sort all that out.
Well, nobody's perfect, and again, I'm in love with everything so far, so I can't wait to see what's next. You mentioned you're doing a project for Final Fantasy VIII as well now? Are you going to try to keep the whole enemies level with you, or...?
I'm actually on the fence about that. At the moment, I think the way I've got it is enemies have a static level, so they're fixed, and bosses level with you, but that might change in the future. It could go either way. It depends what works best.
Well, I'm sure we can count on you to make it a miserable experience in the best way possible.
Well, I'm not trying to make a hard type mod. I'm just trying to make it like a kind of rebalance, if you know what I mean. Like sometimes I get it wrong, you know what I mean? Sometimes I go a bit too far.
Help people fall in love with it that didn't first time. Okay, that makes sense. So, are you strictly working with Final Fantasy? Do you do other smaller projects at the side?
With other games?
Yeah.
Kind of. I dabbled in FFT for a little bit. There's a good tool for that. I can't remember the name of it. FFT Patcher, I think it's called, but you can change a lot of stuff in that. I actually made an FF6 mod way back that I didn't release to anybody because I kind of didn't do the stats right. I just I had a really bad kind of process with it. I just took the stats of each area and just plussed it by 10 or something, and it ended up being unplayable after a certain point. So I just scrapped it. But you know,
Well, we all have our moments of failure. That's how we learn.
yeah.
So,
I learned that I shouldn't make FF6 mods.
I'm sure you'll get the hang of it eventually. Back to 7, and of course you and everybody else on the planet knows we've got the remake. What are your thoughts on the remake coming?
I was disappointed because Resident Evil got a good remake. The remake, it's called, basically took the original game and I think they did the best of both worlds with it. They modernised it, made it look really nice, but they didn't slavishly stick with the original game. They added their own stuff. They added some new puzzles in there, new mechanics, new enemies and things like that. And I thought that would have been an ideal approach to take with FF7. Just kind of have a kind of modernised game. It's in the same kind of style, your ATB battle system, whatnot, but not exact carbon copy of the original game, if you know what I mean. Just change a few things here and there, keep people on their toes.
Yeah, there's a lot of concern about there being an action system. I'm curious where that's going to go, but, we'll see eventually. So, let's say if you had your way, what changes would you make to 7 if you had unlimited tools, you were in charge of this remake? What would be your best improvements?
If I was in charge of the remake?
Yeah, if you had the ability just to pursue any idea.
I would change the direction of it entirely and go for that kind of like that Resident Evil remake kind of deal and go with that way. I think budget-wise it would be a lot cheaper than what they're going with because I can see that game getting maybe delayed quite a bit. Just because of the sheer scope of what they're trying to go for, and I don't know if it's realistic. And I think no matter what they do, they're going to disappoint people because they're going to have to cut things, like certain scenes, events and whatnot. Through no fault of their own, they'll have to do it though because there's just too much in that base game to recreate faithfully, if you know what I mean.
We might get lucky. They do say that they're doing multiple episodes. We'll just have to wait and see if their money is where their mouth is. Do you have any advice for people that want to get into modding themselves?
I would start simple and be prepared to install some dependency files like Visual Basic Power Packs because some of these tools are pretty old now. The kernel editor's really old, the 3D model editor's extremely old. But yeah, just a bit of patience and don't be afraid to ask people how do I set this up or what tools are available to edit what and just, because if you ask questions then the community's quite good and we've got quite a lot of information that we can share. So
yeah,
get a head start on it.
The community, how do you pronounce that? Kim.com?
I pronounce it Quim, but I think I've got it wrong. I've never actually heard it being said, so I don't know.
It's a pretty good community, though. You've been pretty responsive. I'm very grateful that you even agreed to this interview. But it's a good crew over there. You can check below in the About for the link to there so that you can get a copy of this mod. Please try it. It's really good. With all that said, is there anything else you'd like to tell our audience?
No, I think I'm good. If you check out the mod, if you encounter any problems or have feedback or feature requests, just let me know on Quim, Twitter or wherever. I try and answer to everything.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Sega Chief, and we look forward.
Thanks for having me.
We look forward to seeing more of your work in the future. Thank you for joining us on the Lifestream Lounge. Like, comment, subscribe. If you played New Threat, tell us in the comments. Are there any members of the community whose work has stood out to you in particular? Tell us about them. I hope you'll join us again for another fascinating look at the Final Fantasy fan community and the endless creativity that unites us all. Have a good night.